fresh out the oven.
What is cracking, everybody? It's Mega Pie Man here, and welcome to another Look at My Map video. This time for Payload Race Push Alpha 2. You may be thinking to yourself, Pie Man, what happened to Alpha 1? We don't talk about Alpha 1. Also, hey, it's not King of the Hill Synthetic. We're making a new map. So, TF2Maps.net is currently hosting a contest called the Payload Checklist Contest, in which they have a whole bunch of options you can pick from. You gotta pick 5 options off of the checklist, and then make a map that has payloads in it based off of those. And on the screen right now are the options that I picked. Basically, the options I picked were multi-stage, multi-cart, specific rollback zone, specific ledge height, and what was the other one that I did? Oh, and the payload track crosses over itself. That's the 5 that I chose. Now, the thing about Payload Race Rush is that this is the first time that I'm really messing around with the payload game type. And I decided to do Payload Race because that covers the multiple cart thing within the checklist. Now, I have attempted to make payload maps before, but I've never really gotten to the point of actually putting in the payload logic of having a cart that moves. So this is the first time that we are going to be, or I'm going to be working with a cart that will move when players get near it. But here we go. We have Stage 1, which consists of, apparently, buildings you can see through. We have these 2 buildings here. And there's a whole mess of tracks all over the place. So, Payload Race, let alone multi-stage Payload Race, has some issues that I'm attempting to work on with Rush. The main issues that Payload Race has when it comes to multi-stage is that a lot of people say that the first 2 stages don't feel like they're important, since whoever wins Stage 3 wins overall, even though if you win Stage 1, you get an advantage in the next stage, you win Stage 2, you get an advantage in the next stage. If you win both Stage 1 and 2, you get a big advantage. If one team wins Stage 1 and the other team wins Stage 2, they're evened up. So, to try to work on that a little bit, I've decided to make this a 2-stage Payload Race map. Originally, this was going to be a 1-stage map, but 1-stage maps have their own issues, mainly where people avoid the objective and just murder each other, like in Hightower, and that is generally just not fun. But the original map that I was working on that was going to be 1 stage ended up being too small. It felt too small just to be 1, so I put a 2nd stage in there with the idea that if it's 2 stages, the first stage, whoever wins the first one, will get an advantage in the second one, but the second one is the last one. So that advantage will actually feel like it has more of an impact, instead of with 3 stages where red wins stage 1, blue wins stage 2. Then you might as well have not even done stage 1 and 2 on stage 3. That is the hope. That's why I'm doing 2 instead of 3. Now, the problem with doing 2 instead of 3 is that I need to figure out how to make these maps so they still feel like they play the same amount of time length wise as stage 3, and the way that I've decided to do that is by making them more like arenas, which is how the stage 3s on Pipeline and Nightfall are done. And by that, I mean that they're much more open than Pipeline stage 1 and 2 or Nightfall stage 1 and 2, which are the multi-stage Payload Race maps in Team Fortress 2. One, I think Pipeline was by Valve and Nightfall's a custom map. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure. But how did I do that? Well, number 1, I do not have setup gates. There is a setup time of 15 seconds before pushing the cart will actually cause the cart to move. But I do not have any setup gates, as you will see all over the place. There's nowhere for there to be, well, I could put setup gates in this building, but I don't have them. And the main reason why I don't have them is because I want to maximize the amount of space that I have, and I want to, with the cart layout the way that it is, it's a little bit weird, but with the way that the cart track is laid out, I want to have the payloads as close to each other as often as possible. So, when players find each other to murder, they will also find the payload. Basically, if you're pushing the payload, you can't help but find people to fight. If you find people to fight, you can't help but push the payload. The idea of that is it will stop people from just turning the game into deathmatch. I don't know how well that's going to work, but that's the idea. Okay, so let's follow our payload line. First, you start here. You've got the spawn room, and then you have the advantage, height-wise, for the team whose cart is over here. But you could also go this way to quickly get to the end. We're not getting there yet, but you could if you wanted to. Once you get the cart, you push the cart through this building, go past this bridge, push the cart over to this bridge, push across the bridge, which will put you into here. As you can see, that is relatively close to the paths that the opposite team will be taking. I imagine there's going to be a lot of fighting going on in these buildings. Once you get into this building, you'll then go down here, go across this way, and then down here, where the tracks are side by side again. So, you have tracks side by side up here, and then they cross beneath each other in tracks side by side down here. This should, in theory, constantly make contact. This middle area should have a lot of contact for a lot of fighting, making it a very desirable area, because that's where players will be, because that's where the objective is, and because that's where players will be, people will do the objective. That's the idea. Playing the objective will find people to fight. Players not playing the objective will find the objective just by finding people to fight. Now, this has changed a little bit when it comes to the finale. Once you push underneath the bridges, you have a little bit of a rollback zone, and then it pushes right into here, where you have to sort of go past the spawn room. Now, I did not want to create an area that was impossible or overly difficult to push into. A lot of lasts for Payload Race end up being just a grind, but I still wanted it to be defensible. So you can build up a sentry gun over here to cover the end. You've got yourself some metal right there. And you can use explosive classes to rocket or sticky bomb jump over this to attack over there, or up here. You can't build a sentry gun up here, but you can stand up here and shoot things. So if there's the rollback zone, they're pushing the rollback zone, you can pop up here, shoot them a little bit, have them go back down to the rollback zone. This is hopefully going to work as a bit of a choke point, and then push your way through here. Hopefully it's not going to be too much of a choke, but I do want a choke point for the finale, so this stage isn't over just immediately. This area is probably the most like a traditional Payload Race map, because this one isn't necessarily super focused on being a open arena with a cart going through the middle. But I'm hoping that all of this in the middle will make up for that idea, with all these other paths to easily get in and around where the action is if you need to, and you can get from point A to point B to wherever you want to go from anywhere on the map. That is the idea for Stage 1. Now, Stage 2. This is, of course, the second stage, or the final stage. It's a lot more focused on verticality. The idea for this is that if you won the previous stage, your cart will start here. If you did not, your cart will start there. The cart goes this way. It goes across this, which, since both of these are close to each other, I had to put something in the middle here for the sake of optimization, or otherwise, you know, the freaking sight lines for snipers would be ridiculous, and trying to make this map have a decent FPS would be horrible, because you could see the entire map all the way across the whole map once. But it should be a close enough area to cause fights. So if you're defending, if you're pushing here, you can easily go from pushing the payload up to here to fighting players at the other payload and back and forth like that. Push around this way to our big rollback zone. This is the one that makes it count for the checklist. Also, the ledge height that I need, boom, right there. So multi-stage, multi-cart, ledge height, and what was the last one? Multi-stage, multi-cart, rollback zone, ledge height. I don't remember what the last one was that I said. What was the fifth one? I'm going to remember it as soon as I don't need to remember. Oh, the car crosses over the track. That happened in stage 1. Okay. Yes. Okay. Good. I wanted to try to space things out between the different stages instead of having everything on one stage since I decided to do multi-stage. Now, my original plan for how I wanted to do these rollback zones is I was going to have the cart go straight through here, around this way, up this way, around over here, and then boom! Right there in the middle is where the explosive area for where the cart needs to go is. The problem with that is it makes it so that the red team who starts here will end here. So they will end on their side of the map, which will make it difficult for the opposite team to defend. So I had to change the path a little bit, which means the path is a little bit janky. I might have to work on it some more, but the way that it is now, you have the red side, then goes to the blue side to put the bomb in the middle. The idea is that by putting the bomb in the middle, it should help stop the stalemates you get at the end of payload race maps, where usually you have to push the bomb all the way into the enemy's, basically where the enemy spawn area is. A lot of the time. But this time, you're putting it into the middle of the map. And there is the main choke point here, where the rollback zone is. You can get around the choke point a little bit by going through this room, but defenders have some pretty good height advantage over here. Attackers have a little bit of height advantage here, but defenders, of course, you can explosive jump up here. Can't build, we can explosive jump up there. You can't build up here, but you can explosive jump up here. And you can build up a sentry right here. Should be a very good spot for building up a sentry. Since you have your ammo and health right there, there's not a great way for anybody to, like, get in here, so it might be too good of a spot, and the payload has to go through here. Even once the payload gets past this area, the players still have to go through here to push the payload into the end spot. I might change this a little bit. I might change it so that instead of pushing it into the middle, I'll put the ramp over on this side, so you push it over there. I'm not entirely sure about that. And I'm not entirely sure about how sight lines are going to work for this particular map, but that's the basic ideas for it. When it comes to the spawn room, since it's very easy to very quickly get up here for defending, I have this path kind of all the way back out in the, it's kind of shoved back in the corner. It might be a little bit too much shoved back in the corner, but the idea is that when somebody spawns, they won't be able to spawn and immediately go right to here, which could be a little bit too quickly. It could be a little bit too quick, not too quickly. Could happen a little bit too quickly and make defending too easy. So I kind of put it back here. Also lets enemy team spies kind of have a place where they can hang out if they want to. The other place to go is you go this way and you go down over here. You can jump over this railing, get on the van, and then go down here, go straight to the bomb cart. So if you want to push the cart, you go this way. If you want to defend the enemy cart, you go this way to quickly get to up here. That's something that I'm really trying to do with the spawn rooms. There's two ways to get out of the spawn. Both lead to different areas, which should make it very difficult for a spawn to be spawned camped. It should almost be impossible for one team to spawn camp the other team, considering where the doors are and how they lead to such different areas. And it should make it so that you go one way to push and one way to defend. Same way on stage 1, you go one way to push and one way to defend. So, depending upon what you want to do, you can very quickly figure that out at the beginning and move on from there. Of course, this is Alpha 2, but I have not had any testing on this map so far. We don't talk about Alpha 1. I haven't had any testing on this map when it comes to players actually getting on it and playing it. So everything is subject to changing. I may add a stage 3 if I feel that stage 1 and 2 are too short, or this idea of only having 2 stages doesn't work the way that I want it to. But for now, we're trying 2 stages with stage 3 payload race design. That's the idea. I don't know if it's going to work, but that's the idea. Also, trying to get this payload launcher to work is a huge pain in the butt. I don't know how people, I guess if you make a lot of payload maps, then you get used to figuring out all the ins and outs of how to make a payload work. But there's kind of a reason why I haven't messed with payload game types before. The actual logic of getting a bomb cart to move and do everything it's supposed to do correctly is really complicated. So, I got it working, but we'll get tested, we'll see how things go, and I'll talk to you guys next time for Alpha 3.